3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Shoot off. If you went down to, what's that? You know, like, really? Oh, but I'll get you one. No, like, sorry, I can't hear this. I think we can use this a wee bit like I really can't hear you. What's that?
Beyond living memory is a term often loosely applied to illustrate an extraordinary state of affairs. The money hat market, however, had ample justification for its use today in connection with the conditions it experienced over the turn of the year. The charge for fresh loans opened around 6%, but the almost complete absence of the heavy calling associated with December 31st left brokers refusing money at 4%. Recovery will be a slow process. What economists said in the business sector is equally true of the financial sector. Prosperity breeds the crisis with its depression. Depression of itself produces the conditions for restoring. Augmenay was quietly celebrated for the last as the music
James Madison.
ably attached as a shadow and stimulates. Nowhere was the celebration carried as the thought of the terrible time. The year hours before the largest industrial centre. Mere mental resilience enabled the more youthful section to recover its knowledge.
I had no idea.
That factor as well. The Glen Cinema, situated at Hazel Cross, was the scene of the trial. It was so well been left in an extensive reconstruction carried out by the Town Council over the last 4 years. Its patrons were mainly of the industrial class, at a time where 1 infant death occurs in 5.
I'm late at 15 and I saying, so I just had a big cable under the skirt and connect atmosphere.
It began with a happy gathering of children attending a matinee performance.
The
First year, a Western cowboy story had just been screened and removed from the opera when smoke began issuing thence. Children at the rear of the sign, observing the smoke, raised terrifying cries of fire, and with the rapidity of an electric blade, alarm spread through the huddled rows of children, who immediately made for a door, furthest from the smoke, only to find it was barred. The death toll numbered 70, and in most cases was due to suffocation caused by crushing. One of the most heart-rending features of the tragedy was the fact that at no time were the victims at any real danger from fire.
That's quite that. Wow, yeah, that's quite that. Oh, they have all the fancy keys.
Poor Ellen when they're really hit with her friend. I'm like, I like that.
Like the arcades are still open, that everything's sort of like not really working.
Okay, no, I mean,
Oh, the rates. Oh, shit. Oh,
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
oh, no worries.
That's to do something
It's not storage. I didn't think it was all white either. I just thought it was a visual display, and then it just I didn't know what the information is about.
Yeah. No, well, it's like all the prices and food. Apparently on a like thing or whatever.
Yeah. Nice. I was gonna say.
Mr. and Mrs. Homer Regan were married on January 1st over long-distance telephone. He could be in Cleveland, and the bride, Miss Bethel Farr, in Waco, Texas. Justice Audrey Morris of Waco performed the ceremony, while witnesses listened in on extension telephones. The ceremony took 6 minutes, and the phone bill was $9.50, considerably cheaper, said the bride, than the railroad fare from Cleveland to Waco. The bride's mother, listening on one of the Waco extension phones, began issuing orders to her son-in-law immediately after the ceremony, while the bride in another instrument cried, "Oh hush, mother."
Our knowledge of the solar system has been pushed at least twice as far into space by the discovery of a new planet. Professor Harlow Shell today announced the discovery, made by the Little Observatory of Flagstaff, Arizona, of a planet situated beyond Neptune. The new planet is larger than the
James
Earth,
Madison.
smaller than Uranus,
Mr.
and 1
Madison,
year of this new
yes,
planet
this
would be
is
some
Miss
300 or 400
Used to know
armies.
there at the back.
Suggestions of names for the new planet
I'm
were
actually
early
working
pouring
it
in, with frontrunners including Hoover and Chapman.
Oh, that's
But according to
strange.
Professor
You
Chad,
see,
astronomers would be
having a bit of
looking
trouble
for
with money.
inconsistencies
I
in
see
the
you
other
say it,
planet,
right? So you say
and will likely settle in the name of another Roman
I
god.
suppose you have to
If
know
so,
when
we
it's
may soon
wrong.
have a planet, Pluto, often morbidly associated with the underworld. Pluto is the Roman god of wealth, a concept which to the ancient Romans was much closer to something like abundance and land and resources, what we've come to refer to as the commons, than the material one,
Come and do what they call it, equivalence is
society. With the classical definition expanded to incorporate all manner of
We've got to get
common
caught
life,
against my
it might be
Same
unhinged the notion of wealth from selfish origins and reckless expansion.
The fish? You
Of
don't think
course,
that's the fish, it's
we
from
may
the
end up
tea.
with
I won't be able to finish, I'm just joking.
Oh, right, well, Cheerio then.
Enjoy your tea.
Hello, Capital United Free Church. I mean, Capital Queen's Park Church. I might have been taking assistance. Your ordination ceremony, right. Okay, Madison, you said. Right, let's see. Maybe... It's been a complete nightmare keeping a hold of anything since the unification. The whole filing system's been completely appended. Okay, right. It would help if these old Kirkers actually told me when the ministers were supposed to be getting ordained. Sorry, I should say our ministers. Still get used to that. I think maybe we've lost your documentation. When's your ceremony to take place? Today? Oh, I'm so sorry, well, I don't want to keep you waiting any longer than necessary. How about we do the ordination over the phone just now? It's perfectly binding, Mr.
Mr. Gandhi's resolution was today
Quite sure,
adopted by
Mr. Madison.
Congress by an
Please repeat
overwhelming
after me.
majority.
I,
The
James
resolution
Madison,
declares
I,
independence
James
as a
Madison,
vehicle
swear
and
to
launches
serve
a
thee,
program
thy
of civil
Lord,
swear to serve thee, thy Lord,
as a humble servant of the United Free
Back
Church.
at home, our socialist MPs
Church
have had no
of
hesitation
as a
to
humble
support
servant
this
of the
movement
Church of
directed
Scotland.
against
Okay,
rational
and you're done. Congratulations,
Spinners
Mr.
and
Madison.
weavers.
You're our newest
But in
minister.
their ignorance,
I'll
we
mail
turn
out the
such socialist
certification
members
first
of
thing tomorrow.
Parliament. Do they want an Indian
Weddings,
revolution
funerals, you
with
name
an
it.
object of
Welcome
keeping
to
their
the
colony of India? Peace and death
Now,
must be
if you'll
settled
please,
in the end.
I must get
When
back to
the
my
Imperial
congregation.
Parliament,
There's
having
practically a
all the
few
evidence brought home by its own
You'll understand
ideas.
soon.
Sir Feroz Settlement of the Imperial Legislative Council today gave a stirring speech in which he characterised the drive for independence as the pursuit of a chimera. We may have had cause in the past to doubt the sincerity of British promises, but today Mr. Wedgwood Ben was thoroughly sincere in his earnest desire to advance India politically to the fullest extent possible.
So a lumps.
I think it's all the tree roots. No, I think somebody's built that.
It's not like graves, is it?
No, someone's built that. It's like a ski park.
Oh, okay.
Like something like
southeast.
Southeast,
Alligator. You've ordered off menu. This way? Right. It's just really hard to walk with this jacket on. Jesus. It's like a fucking ball gown.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking you were
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's really important to the work. The integrity of the work. Yeah, that's that beachy walk that I went on with my
Still
parents.
going on up here.
That walk was weird. It was like the town that you went through was just like incredibly bougie, like English people. I don't think there was one Scottish person.
Is it one of those like?
I don't know, but that sounds like an English town name, doesn't it? Is that considered the borders?
It's getting there, yeah, because the borders are nearer. You're nearer the border on the Edinburgh side than you are on the Glasgow side. Because
Well, yeah.
you're not, I mean, it's, I don't know, it's the start of the border, right? You know? It's still sort of central belt, I suppose. But they start to have a bit more character on the border towns.
Yeah. Well, because everyone's white and English. What's it that way?
I was thinking we would be quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you'd started. I'm sorry.
I was shown into the home of Mr. Vincent Patterson in Moss End by his wife, an austere-looking blonde woman who went by the name of Julia. Their touring house attempted to hide the nature of their poverty with its immaculate cleanliness and the pride that was given to two orange figurines that decorated their mantelpiece. Baltic amber, Mrs. Patterson explains to me. I'm seated at a low wooden table presented with a plate of fried rye bread. Please, proffers Mrs. Julia Patterson. Mr. Patterson appears and shakes my hand warmly. He had invited me to his home the previous evening after a meeting at Moss End Mining Workers' Union. I had explained that the readers of the Socialist Review wished to support their working class brothers who spent days in the mines at the expense of both health and mind. He had then shown me a number of pamphlets that the union had produced, one in an unfamiliar text of Lithuanian. For despite his name, Mr. Vincent is Lithuanian by birth, as is his wife Julia. Born as Vytautas Peturienė in a town called Druskininkai on the border with Belarusia, he had fled the punishing Tsarist regime in 1907. His wife Julia joined him in Lanarkshire in 1913.
Oh, hey, good, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
School we've been doing like directions with the children.
Oh, nice, cool.
And I drew my first map, and then went into school and did that lesson. I was like, back to drawing board.
Yeah.
Got a terrible map. It was like the worst map I've ever drawn. I was like, it's not like wide enough and everything. Like I didn't include enough details.
I see. Okay.
Like the shapes of the things. Like I didn't think of it from an Asian perspective.
Right, okay, yeah.
And when I was trying to explain it to the kids, I was like imagining a bird, and I was like taking on advice here. Imagine a bird and like float over rather than
I like that about Texas as well, because it's so big, but also there's like, because it's like there's cattle farming is the main thing, and people sort of just move around, so there's not so much of a sense of like, oh, I'm from this place, I'm from this place. It's just like, I'm from Texas, kind of generally, so there's not so much a tie to a really specific like town or locale. It's more just like, oh, I'm from here, which I guess is kind of nice as well. Yeah.
You think of it like that, I think because things are much more static nowadays, even in farming,
Yeah,
with
that's
the
true.
industrialisation of it, it's not as transient.
Yeah, you can't exactly move everything around if you've got like
land, and you purchase
yes.
land, and you own it, and you've got deeds and all that stuff. You can't just have fix and leave.
There's the only person I found with that kind of old Scottish name, because like my grand's side came from Ireland, and then on my dad's side, his mum's German, his dad's Scottish. But Dodds doesn't have a tongue, I don't think. It's an old Scottish name, but I think it had no.
It may have like another family.
I don't think it has any aristocratic kind of thing. So I think like it never got a tartan.
John, like McDonald's, you give it 17.
Oh, of course, yeah.
They're all very Gaelish, and like, can we get anything new little bit?
Yeah, a nice pastel tartan.
Yeah, thank you.
4 o'clock, blue. I've lots of work to be doing, lots of expectations to be meeting, and yet my days are currently slow and quiet. It's a weird disconnect. 5 o'clock, green. My plants are dry. They grow leaves which stick around and then fall off. Am I a poor plant owner? 6 o'clock, purple. Can I keep my mind clear for 10 seconds?
Pluto's Arrow, affordable and confidential. How may I be of assistance?
Hi, how are you? Have you still got
Yes,
clothes?
Mr. Gordon, we certainly do.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
Discreet and legally binding.
Right.
Are you looking to arrange a wedding
Not
for
bad,
yourself?
thanks. I was just calling to let you know I've booked in for
Well,
the
you're
training
discriminating
and
here,
there's still
Mr.
space
Gordon.
for you in
We've
town.
performed
I'd just
many
like to
interfaith
say
marriages
thank you
over
for
the years.
engaging me last
Can
weekend.
I please take your
It's
full
really
name and
The
for
27th at 7 until
Yeah,
That's
no,
it, we'll
but
manage the
it's
law.
really nice to meet you.
No worries.
Your fiance's name?
Also, thanks so much for dropping me
Okay, that's
home.
all right, Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, I'm
Can I
fine.
pencil in the ceremony for
See you then.
I gotta go. I love you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you.
Just call in with your fiancé at 11 AM sharp and please send in a cheque in advance of the proceedings. Goodbye for now. Pluto's Arrow, affordable and confidential. How may I be of assistance?
I don't know, because I tested negative on
That's what we hear from his
positive on my LFT.
Now, can I please
I'm
ask
good,
your
thanks,
profession?
Lloyd. How are you?
Yeah, I feel fine.
Primary or
That's
secondary?
great. The 27th, right?
Oh, thanks.
That's great.
No
And your
problem.
fiancé?
It was for Mother's Day anyway.
Your husband to be.
No problem. How are
Oh,
you?
you're Italian.
Don't be silly. It's not a problem.
Oh,
at all.
I'm sorry.
See you
Luckily.
next
That's
week.
good.
I just assumed that.
Okay,
Please
I love
excuse
you.
my ignorance. You're too kind. Okay, and why have you opted for our phone service over a more traditional way then? Say no more. Some might call it bigamy, but here we call it doubling down. Can I pencil in ceremony for the 18th? Thank you, Miss Prescription. Just call in with your new husband at 11 AM sharp and please send in a cheque in advance of the proceedings. Goodbye for now.
It is a clear summer's day and I am standing at the top of a newly paved road. Running alongside this road on each side are rows of identical one-storey homes. Each home is a narrow stone path leading from the front door to the pavement, nestled within a patch of green grass. Some residents have planted flowers and some even have motor cars parked out front. 10 years prior, this enclave was a sprawling patch of farmland. Now it is a burgeoning community of those lucky enough to purchase a home out with the overcrowded city. Michael Henderson, 37, is one of these residents. He's been living in his own bungalow here for the past 6 months with his wife Jean, 34, and their 3 children. The family moved here from a tenement building in the east end of Glasgow, where they lived with Michael's mother and father. According to Michael, the experience of living in one of these new bungalows is night and day in comparison to the overcrowding and the noise of the Glasgow tenements. Not everyone is as enthusiastic as Michael and Jean about these new communities, however. Peter McGregor, 46, released a damning statement on behalf of the Saltire Society, an organisation which champions Scottish cultural interests. McGregor referred to the communities as eyesores that are trying to eradicate Scottish heritage and culture. He went as far to denounce the architecture of the bungalow as a form of English invasion. He adds, these communities, if you can call them that, have been built to keep the Scottish workforce isolated from each other so that they can't organise and to curb the power of our unions. McGregor's sentiment is echoed by Michael's mother, Mary, who worries about the distance between herself and her son. I haven't seen Michael in 3 weeks, she says. It takes me over an hour to get to his house on the bus if I'm lucky. I just can't see how being that far away from your family and friends can be good for the Waynes either.
I'm literally just taking
Go
this
for it,
one
no.
from this one.
Yeah, it's one
thing
piece
you
of
sent me,
information.
but, like, they were able to regain a sense of that identity.
Yeah, that they maybe didn't have at home.
They didn't have a home. But then
I know, yeah. And really quite quickly, despite, as you say, you would expect, because you've not had the chance to have that at home, and you then come to a new place where it's possible to sort of like have your own cultural identity, you would think that would stick. But I think it was sort of under the pressure of, Depression era kind of economics, where it was like, if you don't assimilate, then you're not going to be in a job, basically, was sort of the long and short of it. I guess so. Well, that's true too, because I guess you've got pretty much everyone who would have come across must have had some experience of having to subsume like cultural identity to whatever kind of came along, whether that be like, Russian or Polish. Like, I guess there's sort of that's already part of your kind of like coping mechanism for like, that's interesting actually. I think there probably is a bit of that.
I mean, it's so bloody cold there that you'd have to be a survivalist.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it's definitely something that I'd like to know more.
Whoa! I'm right.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm good. Oh, that was very close. I was like, there's no way I'm coming back from this. It was like, that's the end. I'm just on, yeah. Yes, I know. I'll be using that one.
Right, so we're still waiting on your dad getting here. No, okay, that's fine. We've got a 5-minute window. We'll be absolutely fine.
Assessment community garden site,
Sorry?
assessment key.
What? Sorry?
A cooperative.
It's his son's father.
assessment.
Hi. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Mr. Madison. I'll be officiating the
Providing
wedding.
space for the people of Cessnock to grow their own vegetables and promote a more sustainable lifestyle. Cessnock
Okay.
residents
I
are able to
don't know much about the carpentry.
vegetables and encouraged to share the fruits of their labour. Not only direct produce,
What,
but
so?
dishes and recipes created by
So
and
Hi.
from the neighbours
Good to
and
go.
farmers.
Cooperative owned.
Lawrence
And
Central Shop.
vegetables and
Lawrence
fruits
Central
that
Shop.
are organic.
Lawrence.
Invoice
for
for
something
services.
else. Okay, great.
January
You got a drink?
By Jennifer Amison Stewart, co-owner.
Cooking meals for
Cooking,
friends and
12
family,
hours.
15 hours.
Yeah.
Doing dishes,
Regardless
four
of
hours.
the
Dusting,
God.
an hour.
To
celebrate the marriage of
25,
Mrs.
2
Anne
hours.
Jarvis
Laundering,
6
sorry,
hours.
Mr. Anne Jarvis
Clothes,
and
Taxi
Mrs.
services,
food
8
shopping
hours.
with
Working
transport
out.
included,
That's better.
5 hours.
Event
Hours.
organising, 7 hours.
And
£105.
£50
Reservation
per hour,
booking,
42
2 hours.
hours total for January
You're lovely way to
2022.
Travel organising,
Total
3
Total for the
hours.
month, £630. Please
I
take
take
a
them
look
to
at check on
7
the
hours.
page.
Or for the
£315.
in sickness and in health.
Emotional support,
Will you love
10 hours,
and cherish her
£150.
for as long as you go
Head
shall live?
making, 1 hour, £15. Tea brewing, 2 hours,
Do you take that to be
£30.
your lovely wedding
Total
wife?
for month,
From this day forward, to have into
£1,305.
holes
Please
And
make
your table
payable by
bed.
check or cash.
for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. Will you love, honour and cherish her for as long as you both shall live? Anne, Ruth, having proclaimed your love for and commitment to one another in the sight of Almighty God and these witnesses, it's my pleasure to pronounce you man and wife. You may now kiss the bride. Also, there was a slight spelling issue with the check. It's Madison and I. If you write another one when you get the chance, that'd be fantastic. Cheers. Best of luck to you both.
I remember this when this comedian showed Trump's decapitated heads. People like flavoured her for it. Like you get like these right-wing kind of white power people that are like genuinely killing.
Yes, yeah.
But you have to be. It's like you have to be like on a moral high ground if you're a left wing.
Yes, and that makes it difficult to act, right? Yeah.
Like I think how people gain power is never going to be clean. Like it reverts back to like the slavery thing. Like the reason why all these colonial powers are so rich is because of slavery.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that's just the facts. You do have to play dirty to gain some kind of control over a number of people or over a country or something like that. Like I don't know, like it's morally, I don't know, like the way we call it, maybe it seems very morally corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
But it is morally corrupt. Like that doesn't change the fact that, maybe there's a better way, but I don't know, from like the culture that we have.
Yeah, it's like, because I've been reading this big biography of Lyndon Johnson, right? It's been like, for like the last year, it's like all these volumes, it's like a big like 5-volume thing. I just listened to it because I couldn't actually sit down and read the whole thing. But what's interesting about him particularly is He was like just completely power hungry all his life. Like it was power as in and of itself that he was interested in. But when he actually did have that power and became president, he did do quite a lot of good things. Like he passed the sort of like first major civil rights laws. So he like did use it in a good way, but it's not as if the way he got power was fair or nice or good. I mean, he was quite horrible in a lot of ways. If you're using power, there's always going to be this kind of messiness or, you know, slightly horrible nastiness to it. And it's not necessarily evil because it can do so much good. And they're sort of tied up together.
The emphasis on friendly societies, which was distilled in the context of Victorian street life, remained in force for over a century. The family home, fellowship with every 22nd person, and the legal consumption of beer was regarded as both socially necessary and desirable. A report to Parliament on Sunday, however, highlighted a significant increase of the informal life of the streets that has swept across the worst city in the kingdom, Glasgow. Feats of heroic intercourse at weddings, christenings and funerals have more than trebled, and that's only part of the story. Copious casual labourers are engaging in celebration and entertainment on the completion of a job, illegally neglecting their wider social role. As a result, the numbers arrested sit between 1,831 and 1,851 per day. The Minister for Lowland Towns, Glenn Gallen, was unavailable for comment, having taken an apprenticeship in the depths of the Irish countryside. To explain this wave of common intoxication, police office representative Forbes Mackenzie cited heavy drinking in the city by migrants, trade unions becoming more popular, and the annual celebration of New Year as possible causes. Strengthened legislation on all these factors is expected later this week.
Hello, James.
You not about all?
No, no Sicilian.
We did the paper yesterday.
Aye?
Aye, for the red shirts and that. It's called Red Lights right now.
Is that right?
Why can't you rush it someplace?
Well, I'm not sure I like their new man.
Can't sell them a lot when Joe's selling. I could really go a red shirt with me.
Not to go.
I can't just strike myself.
Well, no, but you're not the only one hurt them.
Aye, I know that. Tim said you'd already won a right to it.
Don't be daft, James. You know it's not a one and done.
Well, it should be. I haven't got the time. I'll be bankrupt by the end of the month.
What about the weddings?
Aye, well, funnily enough, folk don't want to pay flesh and blood wedding prices for one of the telephone.
Shame you're no Orlando gent.
Well, aye. How so?
Well, there's such a thing as entailment law, right? You know about that?
Can't see any Agnes.
Okay, so if you're a landowner of a country or state, when you go bankrupt, you can't have your estate seized because it's not exactly your property, it's owned by your bloodline. It's like the hereditary succession owns the land rather than the individual.
So they just keep hold of their estates then?
Correct.
Really?
Eh?
How can that be right?
That's all.
Well, I'm shook.
So you should be. Now, I'm going to go before Pat comes
Oh, no
in.
problem.
James,
You know, I don't think he mind as much as I think he would. Not exactly a threat to his man, but he can't even pay the rent.
well, there's more important things than that. Bye, James.
Bye, Agnes.
I'll turn up my speaker slightly so you can. That's okay on my end. Right, cool.
Yeah, I'll try to pick good lighting. I'll try to do it on a day when it's emptier. Like I used to go to the skip next weekend to Glasgow has just been completely taken over by rubbish. I don't know if I think when you were there it kind of was already open, but like that.
Was that one with like you'd uncovered the fireplace and there was an easel and stuff in there? Like the room as you come in on your right. That was
uncovered. The other one right now is just like the skip, but my home.
You've constructed a skip out of an entire room.
And the one I bought, I mean, when you buy a flat, there was never truly like an online thing. They were all see them in person.
Oh right, okay. So it seems to be more for renting then, right?
Yeah, it was. But I've seen, because I was also considering at some point moving as well, kind of halfway through it as well. I've seen many flats on video, and to be honest, I quite like it. Technological, not like who like pisses at me every time I any technology. But
I can imagine it would be tight. Yeah, go ahead.
It was like at the end of my fingertips. I really like that.
The typical Scottish tendency to derange dates in order to evoke a regular emotion and belated sympathy for bygone hardships has recently found form in the narrative of a 97-year-old man who insists he was a slave worker in the Glencorse pits. The aged wayfarer stated he'd been born at the foot of the mine nearby, his parents being then slaves in the coal pit. But as a matter of historical fact, the pits at Glencorse were not open until the 1870s, and indeed, such forms of servitude ended.
A lecture was given yesterday afternoon by Mr. R.W.
Hello, Mr. Gordon. This is Mr. Madison from Pluto's Arrow.
With special reference to
Your wedding
lots of ancient Egypt. The oldest
yes, no trouble with the check.
dated back to
I was actually phoning for some legal
and
advice.
consisted of a vessel with a small hole near the base in which water flowed out in a gentle stream. The hours were shown by a scale marked on the inside of the vessel.
I was hoping to lodge an entailment claim on my estate. I'm in quite a delicate financial position, and should I come to bankruptcy, that find my right to remain would really help in my mind.
The hours were not of equal length, but the ancients had no mean of knowing if they were equal or not. The early hours were in fact too long, and similarly the later hours were too short, so those who came on duty last actually ended up serving
So,
much
name of my earliest ancestor, line of succession that leads to me, and supporting letters from my family. This shall be sent to the Registrar's office in Edinburgh. That's great. And as for the notary signature, thank you so much, Mr. Gordon. And please, find yourself in any legal quandary of your own. I know that I'd be more than grateful to return the favour. In maritime law, Mr. Gordon, my expertise is primarily in rowboats. Good day.
Hello. Hey. Do you hear me?
Hello, how are we?
Hey.
And I think actually people always are like so defensive about freedom in terms of like, and this is such an artistic thing as well about the individual and like what the individual has to say and like how uniqueness is important or originality or the liberty to be able to like make whatever you want and like, I guess that freedom of speech stuff as well. But there's something I think that we forget where we actually should be always trying to search for the thing that is like the emotional part, the thing that speaks to like a sense of the mass, a sense of the shared, like this whole corporal reality that we all share, where we're like alive for a bit and then not. But I mean, you want there to be things that people pick up and use, or like, I don't know, that you put your name to that means that you're going to be around for forever in some way, that you have a legacy, like a heritage, like everything needs to in some way be, I don't know, you don't just erase, you're not just erased from life when you go. I think that really that's like a massive part of why we do anything. Like, I mean, everybody is just trying to make sure that the thing that they contribute to life is not shit.
Yeah.
I mean, why am I even I might be showing up for something, or like when I'm napping and there's a point, it's like, well, eventually, like, you won't be able to make those choices or those calls, and like, the time that you do have to be able to do that, like, time and being part of like an intergeneration is like, you had a mother and a grandmother and a great grandmother and all this before you, and you carry them with you, you like house them inside you because of the things that they did and like the people that they made and the love that they gave, and you also want to be somebody who people carry with them inside them when you're no longer there to do that. Like, that's why...
It is common knowledge that the Gorbals is an undesirable destination, rife with immigration, and a sure fact that we do much better to avoid this area completely and to instead rest content with our afternoon teas in the Argyle Arcade. Nevertheless, descending hesitantly down
I am
through
met
Glasgow
with a
Green
delicious and
over the
curious
St
smell,
Andrews Bridge,
very different
and
from
upon
the whiff I
entering
was
the shop,
expecting of
I am
such a
met by a
precinct.
very jolly short fellow who welcomes me in. Mr. Ecker seats me down and serves me a warm cup of mint-flavoured tea, a surprisingly refreshing change from my usual Earl Grey. In the corner of Ecker's delicatessen sit a pile of half-empty cardboard boxes with strange lettering upon them. Donations. Mr. Echo follows my gaze and cheerily translates the odd-looking symbols for me. We are collecting donations for the struggling widows and children of those who lost their lives in the war, he tells me. I ask him what kind of donations. Extra food, blankets, toys, really anything people have to spare, which admittedly isn't much. Just as I am biting into the strange doughy circle filled with an odd creamy substance and some slices of cucumber, the bell on the door jingles and in enters two ruddy-faced, red young men. Donations Ma'am can use for the baby, and in return we've got a few bottles of beer for whatever poor soul doesn't have anything to drink this fine paddies. Well, I never. Beers for the donation boxes, boys. With all the fine work Ecker's doing to look after poor widows. And let me fetch you some milk for your baby sister. And these men are donating beer. Delicious, why am I surprised? Thank you. It's no wonder these Irish women all take to unspeakable trades, grabbing the milk and plonking their beers into the donation box before they head out the door. The worst of all is to think that our king is now could only be inhabited by hard-working and charitable Jews, the likes of Mr. Ecker. Well, I menial jobs on the dirty docks and mines, unskilled labourers are all Irish folks shamelessly roam the streets. I shan't endanger the Scotsman's readers.
In taking more control over its own affairs, Scotland can create a better environment for economic success. Home rule for unionists is that slippery slope to independence. I know very well that the offer of such an assembly, call it by whatever name you please, will not create any enthusiasm in the Scottish mind.
The Aikenhead Estate and Mansion House, situated in the Kings Park district of Glasgow and extending to about 68 acres, has been offered to the City Corporation as a gift in the will of the late Henry Erskine Gordon. The sole condition attached to the gift is that it shall be used as a public park and be named Kings Park. The Aikenhead Estate was once a much larger property than it is today, stretching as far south as the Cathkin Braes and as far north as present-day Govan Hill. In the 17th century, it belonged to a branch of the Hamilton family and was later sold to Octavius Ray of Little Govan. It was during Ray's tenure that the original manor house was destroyed by fire and the land portioned up and sold to wealthy bidders. While most of the land could not be sold, a substantial portion was purchased by John Gordon of the well-known Glasgow merchant family, whose name is perpetuated in Gordon Street. The late Henry Erskine Gordon was his grandson and the estate's last private owner.
Me, Francis, is it your rent you're having trouble with? I might be able to help you out with that. It's a bit... I know a few details around it. Can I give you a call back this afternoon? Not at all, Francis. Speak to you soon.
Finding it a little bit weird to not think about all of this happening right now. We just came out of a big pandemic and it seems like we're just right back into a state of panic yet again. But I'm trying hard not to think about it, so we'll see. So, trying to not think about the war that's currently happening and think of happier thoughts. So, been thinking of more doing my writing. I've not been doing that for a while, and I think it's a shame that I don't get to sort of express myself in that format, because I feel like it's quite detrimental for me to actually not do. It's quite good to do that and reflect on my inner thoughts and how things are with myself. I feel like I've not been doing it as much as I would love to. Just woken up from a nap, so I've not really been thinking about too much at the moment. It's quite nice to not actually think about anything, to be fair. There's a lot that goes on in my head, and it's quite nice to switch off from time to time. So apologies if it's a fairly nothing thought, but yeah, thinking about nothing is a good thing for me sometimes.
Yeah, and there's something, I think it's on either Prime or Prime on Netflix, but it's called 13 Peaks.
Okay. Is this an update on Twin Peaks? They've added 11 more.
No, it's about this guy who wants to climb all the highest mountains in one climbing season.
Oh, okay.
And he's in the lady watched most of it. The girl was just kind of like listening to it. But he seems like a complete insane psychopath person.
Yeah, there's a certain...
He just does them so easy. Like he did it easy, like so easy, like no, like not even breaking a sweat. Like he even like did his bit, and then like he heard that some people got trapped, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll just go grab these folks and come back.
See, that's my thing with like when you watch, you know, like the Olympics and stuff, when people like really good at what they do. Like to a certain extent, you're like, this isn't even hard for you. Like this isn't like there's no struggle here. Like
I know about the handbook and stuff, and also it's like you have like it's a message that you want to convey, either the struggle of like police or XYZ. Like that's kind of where our fun comes from. So like to say you're not allowed to say anything like political or like speak like anything to sort of inspire whatever. It's like it's a little bit weird. So it's a little bit weird that they might as well just not do it, if you're gonna cut everything out, like put everything that they have to say.
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, interestingly, Eminem took the knee, but no one else did. Yeah.
Well, they're all old at the moment, so they might have just like weak knees or something like.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Snoop Dogg's like, I don't think I can get down. I don't think it's good. If I get down, I'm not getting back up.
And do you believe your husband invited you marrying again? Only for regulatory purposes, of course. Alright then. Well, I can marry to Mr. John Dunsford. I make you my second cousin, or a Mr. Herschel Townend. I have he's my sister-in-law. Mr. Townend it is. I'll inform him immediately, and all going well, we'll have the wedding tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Oh, no, thank you, Mrs. Carlucci. Hello, what is our rent relief? How may I be of assistance? Jack. Oh, it's me, Mr. Madison, from the bank. Aye, yeah, still pretty new to it, you know. Oh, it's great to hear from you. Glad you might help you out. It's a bit strange, but I think I can get you out in your rent. Right, so I've come into a bit of land, mostly Govan Hill, really. You have flats down in 8th Street, right? Aye, good. So I've got this land, right, but I've not got cash or anything like that. I'm near enough bankrupt, but it's okay, they can't take the land off me. And it's not just my flats on there, you know, like your flats on there too, so if you'd be willing to take an added check. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Jack. If you're willing to marry one of our relatives, you know, and name only, of course, you wouldn't have to live with her or anything like that.
Well, then I could vouch for you as part of my family, and you can stay in your flat, even if you can't pay your rent. Aye, of course, Jack, come to think about it, but if you decide to go ahead, I could do it over the telephone, and all I need for you to send a letter to the registrar's office in Edinburgh. Evict you for me being a landowner and that. Alright. My pleasure, Jack. Speak to you soon.
There's so much that can be caring to someone because it is so uncompromising.
Yeah.
Like it's caring because it doesn't try and pander to a like, this is something comforting for you, but it's something that someone has put their whole self into, which is caring in a different way, because they've cared so much about the thing and you can then care so much about the thing.
No, I totally agree, and it's like always, like, I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but like, it's definitely things like making like art that's like accessible or whatever, and it's just like, it feels like you realise really not what those people like want. Is it, yeah, there's some sort of like, like,
yeah.
It would be nice if we had something that's like, I don't know, that resonates or something rather than, yeah.
I think there's a there's a danger of thinking too much about audiences, you know, because then you start to presume what people want or need. Because you're thinking, I'm making this for, and that's never been a thing. And I think, and sometimes I felt a bit self-conscious about this, but I just never think about who the thing is for. I just don't. You can sort of belittle people and thinking that they won't get it, you know?
I think it's condescending, but it's more like, I don't know, like in like street theatre stuff, I guess it's because if it's like in a place like they didn't come in choosing, oh, I'm gonna go in and see it.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I feel like there is like theatre that's like not space where it has to like play off what's already there.
I think you're right, and I think what it is, it's less about audience and more about place. And place incidentally is about audience, it's about the people who live there, but it doesn't necessarily have to, you know, already decide exactly who those people are, or completely, you know, determine the piece based on like what you think those people will like. Oh, the footway is closed.
Today, we cast an eye on an island that many of us should take a closer look at, the Republic of Kiribati. This island has managed to fully self-sustain its economy when many have had to struggle and have had to have other countries build them up time and time again. Not them. The Republic of Kiribati managed to keep themselves exclusively independent due to the royalty revenues derived from mining the extensive false bit deposits once found on the island of Banaba. The Revenue Equalization Reserve Fund was established as a publicly owned trust fund in 1956, and Kiribati was still a British colony. The country deposited its revenue from the mines into the trust fund where they can then later reinvest into the country. In the year 2000, the fund was at a staggering $508 million US. The money is also used for when hard times may fall on them in different aspects of their livelihoods, i.e., example, fishing and agriculture. In times when these are struggling, the trust fund is used to help the citizens and promote growth as a whole. This is the main difference, as they do not prioritize export of goods, as many of other countries do. Maybe it is something that we, the rest of the world, can maybe take a closer look at under a microscope and then benefit all countries just as they have. Thank you.
What? No idea what this means. Was this for me? Still no idea what you were saying here. Look at this though.
So, over time, our singing ritual became sporadic. My music was driving so much of my time and energy by that point. I worked in it every moment I could. I was determined to rise above my conditions, rise above all the people who didn't believe I was going to make it, rise above the sad place my sister could fall into, rise above my brother's anger and dysfunction. I was going to rise above it all. even if that included my father, the one stable family member I had. After paying for one summer at the performing arts camp, the most my father ever did for my career was to warn me about how uncertain the treasures of the entertainment business could be. Years later, I called my father and played Vision of Love from the recording studio, putting the phone receiver right up to the Yamaha speaker. Wow, he said, you sound like all three Pointer Sisters. He wasn't a big music man, so this comparison was high praise coming from him. It meant he had noticed all of the layers of the background vocals, in addition to the strong lead. He was really listening to my song, and I could tell he was happy with it, and with me. After all those years, it was truly validating. Yet, even after all I had accomplished, I wasn't immune to the perfectionism he had projected onto his other children. After I had garnered 2 Grammys within my very first year in the industry, he remarked, maybe if you were a producer, you could win more, like Quincy Jones. That same year, the legendary Quincy Jones took home 7 Grammys for his epic project Back on the Block, which spanned the entire history of Black American music and featured giants from Ella Fitzgerald and Miles Davis to Luther Vandross.
Many consider Scottish Enlightenment thought to have had a great influence on the instigators of the American Revolution, particularly the work of Francis Hutcheson, Professor of Moral Philosophy at the University of Glasgow. Ideas could come in the form of newspapers and pamphlets, as well as longer works, travelling with the flow of commodities between Britain and America. The Scots were overrepresented in the tobacco trade, controlling over half in some areas. So while the work of Scottish thinkers may have been a contributing factor to the revolution, the Scots who lived in America tended to be set against it, seeing it as a lost and a lucrative business model. Francis Hutcheson's philosophy was a practical one, namely that a government should exist for the good of the people, and if not beneficial, it's unfit its right to exist. Hutcheson died 30 years before the American Declaration of Independence, and his thoughts on government were inspired less by colonialism in the world, and more by Scottish covenanting tradition and British mishandling of Ireland, the country he was born and raised in. He supported the right of colonies or provinces and self-determination, but emphasised the need to become self-sufficient before independence in his most substantial book, A System of Moral Philosophy. It may not have only been the Enlightenment, but also medieval Scottish culture that inspired the American revolutionaries, as historians have speculated on the influence of the 1320 Declaration of Arbroath on the American Declaration of Independence. This document declared Robert the Bruce a contractual, rather than divinely appointed, king, and defended their independence from English incursions.
Emily, societal debt or quid pro quo is it's about a lot of the time just being acknowledged as a human being.
Yeah, of course.
But yet somebody that is in lockdown not really that bothered about being accepted as a human being. Watch this. Immediately forgetful episode of South Park the other day. It's like the economy went bust and they all started to fear the economy as if it was this like God. Well, it's not anger at the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, he kind of takes the stance of this. It's basically like an analogy of the Last Supper. So he's Jesus. So, no, the economy is not angry. It's not really an angry force. You have to be able to spend money to make money. Whatever. But the conclusion of the episode, what it does is he gets like an unlimited credit card, no limit, like an American Express.
Right.
And all the people of the town that are in debt, every single one of them, he pays off their debt with this unlimited credit card. sacrificing himself for their sins.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah.
That is such a nice idea. That is like an actual thing I could do.
Yes.
Pay off the debts of everybody in my, I don't know.
Well, it's like when debt gets to a certain size, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you were like, you know, £7 billion in debt, what does it matter? Like there's literally there's nothing can be done.
It's not a real number.
No, exactly.
Complete fallacy.
Yeah.
And then it can be, I mean, once you reach a certain amount, you can't be back. You just get bankrupt, innit?
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's interesting because that seems like such a dumb solution, but then when you stop and think, it's like, well, actually, it was kind of work, right?
Yeah.
Like it would kind of work.
Oh yes, I'm James Madison then. You must be from the General Register's office. Oh, no problem at all. Our earliest ancestor was Octavius Ray of Little Dodds. He founded the Ray Carpet Company in 1737 and was soon exporting his fine product across the globe. He purchased the Aikenhead estate from the Hamilton family in 1764, but he died destitute because his firstborn son, Francis, who took control of the company in 1776, ill-advisedly invested a war money in Caribbean operated by a Mr. Alexander Houston. You see, Francis was blindsided by his hatred of the newly founded USA, and Houston intended to establish a colony that would eventually launch war against America. Needless to say, Francis lost the entire family fortune, and following his father's sudden stress-induced heart attack, he burned Berry Manor to the ground with himself inside. Now, Martha, she was the eldest of Francis' 11 daughters, and presumably to spite her father, she married a young labourer who shared the name of the American statesman and future president, James Madison. After her father died, she sold what she could of the estate she inherited to Mr. John Gordon of the Gordon merchant family, and she just abandoned the rest, moving her family to a cottage on the far edge of the estate where her husband established a small cattle farm. Her eldest son was Douglas Madison, and not content to take over his father's farm, he sought passage to America as an indentured servant, but died of typhus on the journey. So his son, Douglas Madison II, well, he never met his father. And by the time he left school, the vast abandoned Ray estate had become a overgrown but strangely tranquil wasteland adjacent to the new Little Government colony. He began work here in 1819 and shortly moved into the lower company cottages that came to be known as the Harvest Village. Entirely unaware they now stood on land that was actually his. And his firstborn son was my grandfather. He was also called John. And you see in the pattern, yes, he was also a member of the Little Government colony. But the first to live in one of the newly built tenements that came to be replaced the Harvest Village. I was raised by my grandfather from the age of 6, and I've only the best to say about him. He died a few years ago in a fishing accident. Then there's my father, the third John Madison. He bucked the trend of 4 generations to become a school teacher at an extreme primary. He died young of a drunken trip to Dumfries, but not before becoming fluent in Lithuanian Yiddish to better serve his pupils. And that brings up to me, firstborn son, maritime lawyer, and ordained Church Scotland minister, James Octavius Madison. All you need to know. References. Yeah, from a family. Of course, yeah. Let's see here. You should have heard from my brother-in-law, Mr. Herschel Townman, and his wife Benedetta. Yeah, so I've had them housed on the outer fringes of the estate, Hampton Street and Myrtle Park, respectively. Trust law of entail protects their right to remain in the event of any financial mishap on my end. That's very reassuring. And you mentioned also a letter from my wife, Mrs. Agnes Dolly. Funnily enough, she wasn't all too keen on taking money. Mrs. Agnes Madison kind of sets the teeth here. I'm sorry, you received 96 letters. Well, it's a rare thing to have such a supportive family. Oh no, that's everything, Mr. Murdoch. Thanks so much for your help. It really puts my mind at ease, and the family's mind at ease too, you know. In these times, even wagers as myself are not beyond bankruptcy's icy grip. I can rest easy knowing my family and I are safe and secure in our historic estate. Really, it's a wonderful gift you give me, Mr. Murdoch. Goodbye.
He started at the same point.
If you think about like
He obviously went like that.
yeah.
And then like he was like, okay, the target.
But that's because you're
that's
because you're thinking of it as a continuum of movement.
So like imagine they start the race and then we're pausing time every time Achilles gets to where the tortoise was last, okay? So every time you pause that. Well no, because the tortoise has a head start.
No, you never said that.
The tortoise has a 10-meter head start.
James Grimes said it.
Alright, okay, I missed that.
Right.
Sorry.
So the tortoise has a head start. Every time you pause time where Achilles gets to where the tortoise was before, the tortoise has moved on ahead.
Yeah.
So if you keep checking, like when he gets to this point, the tortoise is always going to be ahead of him. And then he keeps getting to where the tortoise was before, and the tortoise is always
I
ahead.
now understand how this is the analogy of continuum versus discrete numbers.
Yeah.
Because when you think of something like a race, you immediately think of it as a continuous movement, right? Like that's something you think, that's how you think of a race, like you look at it and you know that, right? So like you never think to split it up into discrete points, whereas with numbers, you're taught to split them up into discrete points. It's like, you're supposed to think of them as 1, 2, 3, 4, when in fact they're a continuum. Like a sort of going from one to the other, and all the kind of things that happen in between that. So that whenever you're looking at a number, it's slightly uncertain what that number is. There's always a little bit of blurriness. Like, in the same way of thinking, like think of like a tone like a number, right? Like a tone.
I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we did, yeah. So like a tone is 4.75, say. Like a tone is 4.75. Now you listen to that tone of 4.75 for 3 hours. And you're gonna, it's a fraction approaching infinity, right? Like, it's small. It's such a small thin line of what that is that when you play it long enough, you start to notice subtle variations, right? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I think that
like you listen. If you listen to a note perfect enough, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But like on a crit to the 50th end, like 4.7775, 4.7776, right? Yeah, like very slight variation because it's a wave. It's not continuous noise, right? So.
Of course, I forget the sound is in waves.
Yeah, that sort of slight blurriness is built into music. Like, things aren't exact numbers. Like, thinking about numbers as blurry kind of makes you think of other things like maps that are also based on mathematics and rigidness and cartography as being more blurry than they appear, or it can be more blurry than they appear.
Yeah, I feel like just drawing a line doesn't seem like a good idea. Like, my work's over there and I live here and it's just all over the place. And how can you like split things up like that?
Exactly. I think one of the most interesting examples of this lack of blurriness with borders is like, have you ever actually looked at like Israel-Palestine map?
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so like when you see, like the way it's split up, right, it's like, you know, mainly Israel, small bit of land, Palestine. But within Palestine, there's also like little circles of Israeli settlements.
Oh yeah, like little
Yeah, and like you're talking hundreds. Like the map is so complicated because it's so rigid.
It's the same between India and Bangladesh.
Right.
It's like, I think there's like the only instance of a triple enclave where there's a bit of Bangladesh inside India, inside Bangladesh, inside India.
Yeah. But yeah, again, it's because like traditional country making and borders doesn't recognize shared countries, right?
No, yeah.
No, I guess it's like thinking of it like.
It has to be one or the other.
Yeah, and it's not really taking into account how people live their lives.
No, not at all.
At all.
It's definitely like a fairly modern thing historically as well. Like definitely, like the Roman Empire, where it wasn't like a geographical feature, like a big river, where it wasn't like a Danube. It was, a great area. Yeah. So you would necessarily like no, and then there is not really.
No, not at all. We'll
Oh, I can have two.